Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of Connect, Share, Prosper. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel, here with Chaz Wilson to talk about your important work in the world. Chaz, welcome back.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be here.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you today about important work. Yeah. The concept of we all have work to do in the world that is important work. And then there's our day job, and they may be the same, but they're not always the same. And so I just wanted to ask you, because I know that you lead with legacy. You lead with like what matters long-term. The last episode you talked about your kids will listen to these podcasts, and there's a legacy in that. And so I'm curious, how do you find your important work? How does someone find what's important for them in the world?
Really deep, man. This could be deep. Well, so I'll just keep it really kind of surface level for a moment, and we can go deeper if you want. But I think first of all, I have to be clear on my priorities. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's my family first. And that allows me to know what my important work is. So I used to have in fact, when we moved and relocated to Texas, I still cannot find it. I've looked really hard for this, but I probably just need to make another one. But I had a card. I have some other ones here that I used to keep on my desk, like a postcard size.
Yeah.
And it said, "Are you married to this?" Mm. And it was a reminder to me of what, like, I talk about this a lot, that it was a reminder I could glance at it and it would remind me, listen, whatever I think is important today at work, I'm not married to that.
Yeah.
And if I want to stay married, not to that or this, not my wife's not a possession, right? But if I want to stay married to that, her, I need to not act like I'm married to this work. And so it was a reminder, like, look, I need to leave at an appropriate time. And so to me, that's one level of my important work, is keeping my priorities and understanding the impact I can have on others. Yeah. Right. If I'm clear about the fact that I have a mission that I believe I'm on, that's why we at our Connect event, my intro music was a song called "Man on a Mission," because I believe that I've got a mission that I'm on to help entrepreneurs. That to me is the important work.
Yeah.
If you're not clear on what your mission is, you're doing transactional jobs.
Right. Yeah. And that's a good place to maybe go investigate for a minute, because it's not, it's when you say like mission, I immediately think of mission statements, and it turns into a wordsmith exercise. Right. And that's not the important work. The important work is way more visceral. It's way more of a feeling of where you get moved by something. Right. So how do we find, like, where can we look in our lives? I would say that everybody already has some clues to their important work. So where do we go to look for those clues?
Well, here's what I want to share with our audience and be completely transparent in this, is that this is also a journey I'm on right now to continue to discover this again. Like, I don't want to in any way intend to act like I have this figured out. I have ideas and things that I've worked on that have helped me to discover my important work. But I actually just said this about our upcoming leadership retreat. I said, I really want to talk about two things. Like you said, we created a mission statement with Master Networks. And in fact, a lot of our chapters stand up and recite it every week. And I was at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I stood up, and I recited it with everyone else. And I went, you know what it's missing? What it doesn't have? I don't recite this out loud and go, dang, I'm excited to be part of this. Like, I am excited because I know what the mission is, but it doesn't really tell me the why and what the important work is, as you just stated. And so I said to the team, I said, our leadership retreat needs to be completely about what's the important work we're doing, the why behind what we're doing. And I want to change that mission statement so that every time it's read out loud, people go, wow, that's the mission we're on as a group. That's the important work we're doing. Yeah. And then how do you create a movement behind that is the second step.
Yeah.
Those are the two things we're focused on. We'll take the whole day to figure it out if we have to, or 2 days. That's our, so I don't want to come in this podcast, Chris, and be like, oh yeah, here's how you do it. I got it figured out. Because we're discovering.
Yeah. And you've been down the road of finding, I mean, I think some of the stuff you've done is important work. Like you've gone down the road and now you're reinventing some of that, or you're reinterpreting some of it, and that's all good. But there are some people who, let me say it this way. I think that there are a lot of people who are in the middle of the hustle. They're in the hustle. They're doing the work. They had a vision for their life, and not exactly sure where they're at with it, but wherever they're at with it, there is also this other thing called important work. And it can be attached to your job, or it might not be. But like you said, like when you know it, you're like, yes, I can't wait to do this. This is what I wake up for.
Yeah.
And that is important work. And if every entrepreneur had that connection to their important work, like who they were in the world would completely change how people related to them. And it would make a huge contribution in the world.
Well, I mean, look, you're doing some important work with this, and you're allowing others to have an impact by sharing their story. But I think it all started probably, I mean, I don't want to assume that you can jump in, but I think it always happens for me when I start asking myself. It's like a self-awareness of, am I doing the important work, or like a readjustment, a reassessment of my own awareness to, am I doing important work, and what could I do to improve that?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think passion is a good place to start. Like if you want to look at clues in your life, look at what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
I used to walk people through an exercise called their power zone. And one of the parts was to look at what your complaints are. Not as a permission to be a victim or to complain, but to look at, like, usually the things that upset us, we have a real deep emotional conviction for, right? So, if you're really upset about child abuse or whatever the thing is, like there is important work to do. There's an injustice to solve, to fix, right? There's a conversation to have. So you can often look at your complaints or frustrations as access to the things that you really care about. And the things you really care about tend to align with your important work, I would say.
Yeah. And I think the other part of it is always thinking about how can you make an impact on others and serve others and be, coming from a place of contribution to them, helps you keep in perspective your important work.
Yeah.
And you get beyond, it's interesting that when you focus on making money, you typically don't. When you focus on serving others, all of a sudden you look around and the money's flowing in. Yeah. So that's why, as you say, if people are wanting to make more money, they should focus on their important work, not focus on just making money, right? I mean, there's ways to do that makes sense, right? But you still have to focus on what's important.
Yeah, so good. Let's make this actionable. If somebody who's like, okay, man, this is good. Like, I really want to do my important work. Like, where do you think people should kind of start to find their important work?
Yeah, I think it's important to find people around you who can point out your gifts. Like I've shared with you, Chris, you are very talented at interviewing. You, like, seriously, no joke. You're one of the best I've ever seen.
Thank you.
If not the best at being able to interview and add value at the same time, right? You don't hijack the interview. It's a great balance, right? I've seen that happen. So in that vein, you have made that part of your important work of what you're doing. Right. So finding people, I would find someone around you that you love and trust to be honest with you, to say, what are my gifts? Because sometimes it's hard for us to see them ourselves.
So true. Yeah.
Right? And so once you know your gifts, you focus your energy and attention around those, because that's your important work. Yeah. I just, fundamentally for me, I just believe God gives us those talents and gifts and we need to use them.
Yeah. And it feels good when we use them. Like we feel strong.
Yeah. Because it's natural for us in some ways, right? That quote, natural, you're natural at this, Chris. Well, because you have a gift and you're using it.
Right. Yeah. So good. I love it. Chaz, if people want to connect with Master Networks and learn more about how to start a chapter, become part of a chapter, where can they go?
Yeah. Hit up our new website, masternetworks.com. You can search for chapters on our map. You can learn how to start a chapter, join a chapter, come join the movement at Master Networks.
I love it. Thanks, Chaz. Another great episode. We'll catch you next time. Where we're going to have a guest in the next episode. This is very exciting. It's our first guest on the show.
Yeah, we're excited.
All right, cool. Thanks, Chaz. See you next time.
You well, Chris.